Here's the thing, you can have freedom and you can have different values in America and still get along. You want involved citizens. We still need American principles. Restoring men and history. Why is every election the most important of your lifetime? Why is every Supreme Court nominee so important today? How can people get along better in the United States? Why do we have such division? Those are the questions asked. And one major reason why people aren't getting along as well is we're not allowing people with differences and values to fully have the freedom they need or control they need, right? It goes one of the, and what I'm talking about is federalism. Federalism is what we ratified. The 10th Amendment is what we ratified, where the states would have numerous and indefinite powers, according to Federalist Paper 45 by Madison, and the federal government would be few definite powers. So few definite, and mainly what? On foreign wars, peace, negotiation. And that Federalist Paper 45 is what it talked about, while the states would have what? Let's read it a little bit. The formal, let's go through this. 45, the powers delegated by the proposed Constitution to the federal government are few and defined. Very clear, right? Few and defined. If you like these videos, please like, comment, and subscribe, and hit the notification button. We would appreciate it. This is Madison, who was a Federalist, writing this, not an anti-Federalist. Those of which would remain in the state are numerous and indefinite. So most of the power to what? Remain in the state. The states are giving the federal government a little bit of power. The former will be exercised principally, the federal government. Over here, the federal government, war, external objects, peace, negotiation, and foreign commerce. So that's, with the last, the power of taxation will be, for the most part, be concerned. So most of your taxes will go to the federal government for external objects such as war, peace, negotiation, foreign commerce. The states will handle the rest. The powers reserved to the several states will extend to all objects which in the ordinary course of affairs concern the lives, liberties, and properties of the people and the internal order, improvement, and prosperity of the state. One more thing, the 10th Amendment Center lists about 30 to 35 powers over here. A lot of them are in Article 1, Section 8. There's other areas, but they're few and definite. And then the 10th Amendment, the powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution nor prohibited by it to the states are reserved to where? The states or the people. So anything not delegated, once you get past these 30 to 35, are all to the states. And here's the problem. Here's what's causing the confusion. We've gotten away from federalism. The federal government has enlarged their power, which the anti-federalists predicted. And what does that do? That makes every election the most important of your lifetime. It also creates a little complacency because citizens, let's say you have all these big unconstitutional entitlements when it should have come from the state or the church or your family or friends, right? I mean, look, here's the thing, and here's another choice. Federalism, where the powers mostly reside in the states. If you want to live in a state that has a big government, you can choose that and work in where? Where would you work that out? And where would the debate be for policy? The debate and the policy is not set in the Supreme Court of the United States. In fact, at the time of the ratification, where do you think the ratifiers thought most court cases would be? They thought it would be in the state government. Never all these federal courts and things being decided, because why? Now the federal government, the Congress, the Supreme Court, and the executive branch has acted unconstitutionally. What does that do to you as an American? What does that do to your family? It gives you less choices. It pushes it down from a centralized federal government, takes power away from you and the individuals in the states. Does it protect your life, liberty, and property better? What's the role of government? The role of government is to protect your A big part of the role of the government is to give you order and protect your life, liberty, property, right? By the way, what does a government also do? A constitution allows you to know what's going to happen tomorrow because the amendment process takes a while. So your family and you can plan accordingly because you understand the Constitution. You understand the powers of the federal government. In other words, the federal government can't just ban natural gas stoves one day. They don't have that authority. Can't ban gasoline cars. They don't have that authority. That belongs where? In the states. Most powers belong in the states, and that is our problem. That is why the anxiety. That is why the atomization part of it, because people need federalism. It's the way it was ratified to begin with, so it's constitutional. But think about it. It's common sense. It's logical that your local government knows more about you than the big federal government. And what happens when you create a big federal government? You get a lot of bureaucracy, right? And you got a lot of people you have to pay. And that encourages a lot of debt, doesn't it? Look at the debt we're in now from the big federal government. Would you consider them successful? I don't think so. They spend crazily, just spent another 1.7 trillion. So it's not going well. There's intention and outcome. Intention and outcome. Did they have a good intention? And by the way, it doesn't matter if it's unconstitutional. You might have a good intention about what? Healthcare. Hey, this would be a good thing. Let's give healthcare to people. Even though many of that faction wanted it to create universal healthcare and take away choices, right? So many in that faction. So what does it do though? It can end up giving you less choices. And here's the thing, you can have freedom and you can have different values in America and still get along as long as 9 Supreme Court justices don't write law. As long as the Congress doesn't do something unconstitutional that pushes their ideology or their policy on 350 million people in 50 states. Because what's going to happen if you do that? What's going to happen? If you push a bad policy or good policy, or bad legislation or good legislation, let's say it's good and it helps some people, but other people know that it's unconstitutional and bad for them. What you've done is changed and altered the Constitution without an amendment. And to change the Constitution, you need an amendment. You can't just have 9 men and women up in the Supreme Court saying, hey, this is a good thing, so let's just do it. That doesn't work. Doesn't work. What does that do, though? It does create division. It can create complacency. De Tocqueville wrote a book, Democracy in America. What was he talking about? How important local government was, how important townships were. You want involved citizens. If the federal government over here, small federal government, is handing out entitlements to the states that should be done from the states, what happens? People might feel like they don't need their church. They don't need their neighborhood. They don't need to know their neighbors. They don't need to know their community. Less community is bad for America, says de Tocqueville, who walked across America. And I think we all know it is. It atomizes people. Now, atomization is good if you want control and power over people and you want to be a totalitarian, right? If you're over here in the federal government and you want power and control over everyone and you want to go to some globalist movement, or you believe you're a world citizen instead of a United States citizen that lives in Alabama, and that you love your country and love your state of Alabama, that you love American principles. And what were American principles? American principles are what? Well, some American principles are federalism and a limited federal government, with the states being a check on tyranny, a check on overreach. Why? Because we had come out of a war with a king. We had broken away from an empire. And why did we break away from an empire? For your life, liberty, and property to be protected. Not taken away from the world with some globalist climate change agenda. Climate change, if it happens, needs to be done at the state level. How could possibly we go overseas for some Paris Climate Accord or some other accord? That takes away your life, liberty, and property. It also takes away your choice if from the federal government, they're pushing a kill switch on you for your car. If they're pushing electronic, by the way, they should never give any incentives for electric energy companies. They don't need to do that. Again, they weren't authorized to do that. We know how much money they're spending And every time they spend, that also creates what? Inflation, if they go like they are. Your butter, eggs, and everything's gone up. Why? Again, look at all the problems of a big government. What's going on with the Fed? What's going on with all this spending? Who's that benefit? Who does all the spending benefit? Just ask yourself those questions. Healthcare is a state thing, and that's where it can be experimented with. Now, what does this do? It enables you to get along, because if you love big government and you want big entitlements and you want a big healthcare program, you can move to California and have them do it. And you can fight in the state legislature for California to ban electric cars and gas stoves and guns, gun control. Again, do that at the state level, because the Second Amendment says shall not be infringed from whom? From the federal government. The Bill of Rights was written to protect you from whom? The federal government. So again, Bill of Rights is meant to protect you, the states, and you from the federal government, so that you have those God-given rights. Citizenship is improved with federalism. There's so many advantages, and you get to choose where you live. Again, you can align with your values. If you believe that in life and you're pro-life, you can live in Alabama, Tennessee, Texas. If you don't, you can live in California, New York, Illinois. If you don't believe in guns at all, except for criminals owning them, you can live in Chicago, Illinois, a city, Chicago, where their gun laws really haven't prevented that many crimes, have they? So anyway, here's the thing. Federalism can help us all get along. There are many benefits to federalism. It's what was ratified. It's what was constitutional. By the way, what happens, do you think, when 9 men and women, or 9 men or 9 women, 9 Supreme Court justices decide something, and 150 million of the people know that the Affordable Care Act was unconstitutional, and they didn't want it? You got to do it at the state level so that we can get along and we can be one nation in 50 states, so that we can still be Americans, but also Texans and Tennesseans and Californians, so that we don't have to have everything in common. Now, there still needs to be, you still need to be Americans and have American principles. That's important too. We still need American principles, free markets, and these long-standing traditions of American principles. But federalism helps us get along. It protects you from tyranny and overreach of the federal government. It helps you be a good citizen, because there's an incentive to make friends and be active in your community. There's so many advantages to federalism. There's such division today, and we don't need every election to be the most important in your lifetime, or every Supreme Court justice, because the Supreme Court sometimes decides to write law. By the way, if the Supreme Court justice wants to write law, what can he do? He can resign his Supreme Court position and run for office in the legislature of his state, since most decisions are going to be done there and should be done there, or constitutionally. Or he can run for the United States Congress and be limited to what laws he writes. It's not about whether it's good or bad. It's about whether it's constitutional or not. For this republic to work, we need federalism, and the Constitution protects you, but you also have to voice and protect it. It needs you, a nation of a constitution and of men. So I think we've gone through everything. Just wanted to do this quick talk on federalism. Citizenship makes it better. Entitlements should be done in the states, not the federal government. You need to build a community. There's a book called Coming Apart also that looks at what happened after LBJ's program. It was a disaster. It's been a disaster, and you can look at good intentions and then outcome. The outcomes have been horrific for families. Families are important. I think that's it. What did we go through? So what are the benefits of federalism? Protects your life, liberty, property. The states can stand up to unconstitutional acts, and they should stand up to unconstitutional acts. Creates better leaders too, right? Because you get involved, and there's incentive to be involved at your local government, because the decisions are important to you and your family. And you know those people, right? There's an incentive to be in the community. And as we know, as Tocqueville said, we know association and groups of men are important. So here's to federalism, and from federalism, freedom, right? You have the freedom to move the state of your choice if we let things work, right? Some states would have no taxes. And then California can have high gasoline taxes, high ammo taxes, high cigar taxes, and everything they want. And they can reward big companies if they want. But the nation, 50 states, needs to be done properly and constitutionally within the states. Building better, stronger men, better thinkers. Here's to freedom and federalism. If you like this video, please comment, like, subscribe, hit the notification button. We would appreciate it. Thank you for your time.